Selamat datang ke ASM Podcast yang dibawakan khas oleh Akademi Sains Malaysia. Siri podcast ini merupakan platform perkongsian topik-topik berkaitan sains, teknologi, inovasi dan ekonomi STIE secara santai dan mudah difahami. Setiap episod akan menampilkan jaringan pakar ASM yang akan berkongsi pengalaman dan pendapat mereka tentang STIE seiring dengan etos ASM. Budayakan sains, raikan teknologi, cetuskan inovasi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good day. Welcome to ASM Podcast. I am Nazmi, your host for today. On the 2nd of March 2023, e-estidotmy has published a podcast episode with the title The Rise of Lab-Grown Meat. In that podcast episode, the spotlight was on lab-grown meat, which are produced in laboratories using stem cells. This novel food source offers an alternative to traditional meat products. It aims to reduce negative environmental impacts, improve food security, and provide a healthier, more sustainable option for consumers. Since that episode aired, we have received several comments on social media regarding concerns about the halal status of lab-grown meat. To help the public understand this issue better, we have invited Dr Mohammad Naqib Hamdan, Senior Lecturer at University Technology Malaysia and Research Group Leader at Akademi Tamadun Islam UTM. Welcome to ASM Podcast, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, can you please tell our audience a little bit about your education background and research expertise?
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi washabihi wa wala. First of all, I would like to thank Akademi Sains Malaysia for the invitation. Okay, to begin with, my name is Mohammad Naqib Hamdan. From the University Technology Malaysia, Johor Bahru. Regarding my field of expertise and my academic background, so after SPM, I continue my study in Sharia at University Al-Azhar from 2008 until 2012, and after that, I continue my study in fiqh and halal, master in University Malaya, and research about halal cultivated meat. But it's not to produce, but from the halal perspective. And then after that, 2016 until 2019, I continue my PhD in medical fiqh. Also in the same University of Malaya, with the same supervisor, Dr Mohammad Anwar. Okay, so if we see my research in master and PhD, both in the fiqh and the science and technology. So this is why what I'm concerned now, to combine both field. From the halal or the fiqh perspective, the Sharia perspective, Islamic perspective, and the science and technology. Because as we know, today's science and technology advance towards until beyond that we don't know what they will come at the end of the day. And one of the advancement is the stem cell research. And one of the output of the stem cell research is to produce meat out of the animal body. So this is and how and why I'm focusing on cultured meat in my master research, because after I completed my degree and finding the research topic for master level. So when I'm sitting mingle around with my friends, so one of my friends asked about this new technology. So back then in 2013, it is something that really new, and at 2013, if I'm not mistaken, Prof. Mark Post. So he's the first scientist that introduced cultivated meat burger. And at that time, the price is very high, and the research is very, very new. So after my friend asked me about the Islamic law, the fiqh perspective regarding is it halal or not, so this is where I'm starting my research about the halal and the cultivated meat, or back then it's known as cultured meat, and now it is known as cultivated meat. So this is where I'm start from the question from the friend and continue until now for the cultured meat or cultivated meat from the halal perspective.
Okay. So doctor, just now you said the study is less about producing the cultivated meat, but more to the
Halal.
the halal perspective, right? So is it more on a theoretical side, or
Yes, it's more on the theoretical side because I'm not a scientist. So I'm from the arts and humanities or social science research. So I don't have the ability, the expertise to produce, but theoretically I have a lot of friends that they are involved, and I know several startups especially in Singapore. And currently I'm on industrial training with the Big Idea Ventures Singapore. And they have several startup under their portfolio from the for the alternative protein. So from the cell-based, plant-based, and fermentation to create the whole ecosystem about alternative protein. So with that their expertise, and even I have visit a lab at Singapore that researching on cultured meat.
Okay, so essentially what I took from that was your study provides evidence for the halal status of the meats so that it's safe for Muslim consumption.
Yeah, more to that.
I
Because as a scientist, for the company, for example, they need to know how to produce meat in halal way. What is the guideline? What is the requirement? So this is where we, from the Sharia perspective or Islamic law perspective, we set the guideline for them to follow.
I see. All right. So halal, as we may know, originates from the Arabic phrase that means allowed or permitted by Islamic law. It is the Islamic dietary standard in reference to food as prescribed in the Sharia, which is the Islamic law. So, doctor, why is it important to consume halal meats from a scientific standpoint?
Okay, so for us as a Muslim, so we concerned about halal because it is something that already put there or set by by Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala in the Quran. So he said that wala kulu ya ayuhan nas, O people, eat what is good and lawful from us. And in another verses he said, eat the good things we have provided for you and grateful to God. So in Arabic term it is known as halalan tayyiban. So God or the divine law said for us to eat food that require from the halal perspective and the tayyiban perspective. So tayyiban mean which is a good and is have the higher quality, and the halal because there is something that may be halal but it may not tayyiban. And there is something that is tayyib, good, but it is not necessary to be halal. So we as a Muslim, we believe that everything comes from God, it is good, and everything comes from Allah from the that taught to us through from the Prophet through the Quran and the Hadith. So it is good for us, whether we know or not know. For example, to eat meat that is slaughtered, the animal need to be slaughtered. So what is the scientific evidence from that, for example? So from the first standpoint is whether there is a benefit from the scientific perspective or not, we need to believe or we need to consume that. So this is where we known as ta'abudiyah. Ta'abudiyah, which means you give full support, full commitment, whether you know the scientific evidence, scientific benefit or not. So back to the discussion about meat. So as a first standpoint is we need to believe that when God asks for us to eat slaughtered animal, according to the Islamic requirement, Islamic guideline, so there will be a benefit, whether we know or not know. And to know about the benefit from the scientific perspective is only, I think, 100 years maybe, when the science and technology can prove it from the lab research. So back then, we as a Muslim or the Muslim scholars, classical Muslim scholars, they say that there is a hikmah, there is a benefit, but they cannot prove it in terms of scientific research method. So, for example, when we come to salat, prayer, so we believe there is a benefit for us. For example, we fast, so there is a benefit for us in terms of health. Even if there is no hadith that mention about the health benefit from the fasting, and God asks for us to fast, so we need to fast. So this is where when we discuss about the meat or the halal, so we need to believe that there is a benefit for us, and we must follow it. So but not all animals need to be slaughtered, right? The livestock regularly need to be slaughtered, lamb, cow, cattle, chicken. But the marine animal is no need to be slaughtered. So this is where we concern as a Muslim. This is what we are concerned.
Okay. So aside from, maybe we can you explain more on the scientific standpoint, because maybe we have readers or viewers who are not Muslim, so they do not necessarily have the beliefs that we share. So maybe there is scientific evidence showing that halal meats are better than conventionally slaughtered meat.
Okay, so from the scientific standpoint, so when a livestock is slaughtered, so the blood drains from the body, the animal body, that preserve, and that when the blood come out all from the after the slaughter, so it may bring to some quality, or to extend to make the meat more quality, rather than the we not slaughter. But as I mentioned before, if scientists manage to make to introduce a new perspective, or a new kind of way to make a meat more quality than the slaughtered animal, so this is where we need to have a standpoint. As I mentioned before, as a Muslim, this is what the first our standpoint, and then the health benefit and the quality for the slaughter animal comes after that.
I see. Okay. So, as was explained in the podcast, lab-grown or cultured meat is grown in laboratories rather than from raising and slaughtering livestock. This is made possible with the use of stem cells, which are the building blocks of muscles and other organs for the specific animal of interest. So, Doctor, how is the halal status of lab-grown meat determined?
Okay. So, in Islamic perspective, there is a methodology to determine the halal status or the Islamic ruling on the certain new technology. So we start known in Arabic term, we known as the first step is taswir, and after that is takyif, and then hukum, and then tanzil. What it mean? Taswir is a conceptualization. So we start, or the Muslim scholars need to have the right concept about cultured meat, for example. So if they are making a research on cultured meat, so they need to understand what is cultured meat, how the stem cell is extracted, what is the process, what is the ingredient, the serum, what is stem cell, what is the ability of the stem cell, and then after stem cell, what it became after that grows differentiation, and become a meat or muscle cell, and then become a meat. So that concept need to be clear and need to be a right concept. So if you don't have the right concept, or the concept is different from the scientific perspective, for example, so this is where the Islamic ruling after that is come that may not align with the scientific perspective or the scientific research. So the first is to conceptualization is to have the right concept.
The understanding.
The understanding is need to be correct. Okay, so after that come known as takif. So takif is you need to find to identify the similarities. Okay, so you have the right concept. So what is the Islamic verse or the hadith that may align with that concept, or may have the same condition with that concept? Or if there is no hadith or there is no Quran, what is the discussion of Muslim scholars about that new technology? Okay, so back when we discuss about cultured meat to determine whether it is halal or not. So after you have the right understanding about cultured meat, so you need to find what is the hadith or the Quranic verse or the concept or the discussion from the Muslim scholars about that may related explicitly or implicitly. So we cannot find the right discussion or the discussion to be detailed in the Quran and Hadith, because it is given to us 1,000 years ago. So at least we need to find this similar, right? So when we find or we search in the Hadith, so there is Hadith. Prophet said, "Ma quti'a minal bahimati wa hiya hayyah fa hiya maitah." Translated it that anything or any part of animal body that is embodied or cut off during when the animal is still alive, so that a body is considered as carcass. So you cannot cut the tail from the cow and you make it sop tulang or sop ekor. So because it is cut off, when it is cut off when the cow is still alive, so the tail is considered as carcass and cannot be eaten. So majority of Muslim scholars opine that cultured meat or stem cell is considered as a meat. So when considered as a meat, so it need to be the stem cell need to be extracted when the cow after the cow is slaughtered. So from the halal meat itself. So is it possible? So this is where scientists or Muslim scientists, for example, need to find the solution. Back in 2019, when I was invited by the Prof. Mark Post at the Amsterdam, so during the discussion, I asked him about, is it possible to extract the stem cell from the from the slaughtered animal? Is there any different? So back then he replied that there would not be any big difference between the stem cell from the slaughtered animal and stem cell from the living animal. As long as you extract the stem cell after, you have estimate or you have the certain period of time that stem cell or the cell in the meat is still alive. Right? So for example, maybe after 10 minutes or 11 minutes or maybe 15 minutes after the cow slaughtered and completely die, so you can extract that after that. Okay. one of the or there is another opinion from the Muslim scholars opine that stem cell is different from the meat itself. So because when the Prophet Muhammad forbid or not allow the body cut off during the animal still alive, because there is because it will bring harm to animal. So the harm itself that makes the process haram. So when the stem cell extracted, it not bring a big harm to the animal. So this is where some Muslim scholars opine that it is not needed to be stem cell not need to be extracted from the slaughtered animal. So this is a minority opinion. And some of them also opine that the concept undergo known as mala nafsalah, mala damun, known as the animal that don't have the drain blood. So for example, belalang. So belalang don't have blood, but it can be eaten. So they known as make the similarities between belalang and the stem cell. So because stem cell you don't have blood in the stem cell. So the different takif or different understanding about the similarities between both opinion brings to the different Islamic law or the different finding. Okay, so after you have a takif known as hukum. So hukum, this is where the final result. So this is where the different appear. So the first opinion, the second opinion. Okay, so after that comes the tanzil. So tanzil or the application regularly depend on the level of a necessity. So for example, the taswir, the hukum for the certain issues says that it is haram, but when it need to be applied to the consumer, to the people, it may be allowed. So for example, the use of non-halal medicine. So from the taswir, it is non-halal. Yeah, the takif, you extract the medicine from the pig, for example, porcine, for example. So the hukum is haram. The final result is haram. But during certain circumstances or certain necessity at the emergency level. So from the haram, when it tanzil, when it is applied to some people, it may be allowed for them only. So not for the general.
So tanzil is more like a condition. Specific condition.
For specific condition. So the same condition also may apply when, we don't know, when if there is non-halal cultured meat and you at the level of necessity, you are very hungry, and if you don't eat, you will be die. You will be die, for example. So this is where that condition said that make you allowed to eat that non-halal cultured meat. So or non-halal any non-halal food.
So like darurat, is it?
Darurat, yes. So this is where the application take part.
I see. Alright, just now you said let's go with the opinion where you need to get stem cells from a slaughtered animal, right? So as we know, we can keep slaughtered meats in the fridge for for a set amount of time. So how long can we take stem cells from the slaughtered meat? Like, can I keep it for a month, and a month later then I get the stem cells?
Okay,
or a year later?
Okay, so regularly when human or animal die, so some part of organ need take a time to completely die. So I don't know if the term is right or not. If I'm not mistaken, the term is ischemic time. So which is after human die, So the time for cell in heart, in skin, in eye, will have a different time. And that condition also apply to animal. About the real time, I don't know. How about the correct or the exact time? 10 minutes or maybe after a year or maybe after a month. So this is where the scientists need to explore about this. Muslim scientists, for example, needs to explore about this, whether and prove it in scientific research. So is there any different if you use stem cell from the slaughtered animal or not? And if you want to extract stem cell from the slaughtered animal, what is the time period and the best period you need to extract? Is it 1 minute or is it, because research about stem cell is very difficult because you cannot control stem cell. So it is I don't know whether maybe God Allah Ta'ala want to preserve that and don't want to open anything or some to preserve or to make us feel that we are still human.
Okay, so we've learned about how we determine the halal status of lab-grown meat. So what is the significance or the importance of getting halal status for cultured meats?
Okay, so when we discuss about halal, so we need to differentiate between halal and halal certificate. So the product may be halal, but you may not receive halal certificate. So this is I think back then in 2019 or 2020 when a company in USA introduced the pork meat plant-based. So they claim that the whole process is plant-based, but it tastes like a pork. So is it halal? And they claim that they halal because the whole process is no animal product or no animal related when used when you process for the product. Okay, so even in Singapore, when I visit the company, the BIV, so they show us the product itself from produced from the company from Israel. So pork meat plant-based. So it may be halal, the process, but the name itself that may lead to the misleading. So that kind of situation that kind of condition that may make them don't receive the halal certificate. So in terms of halal, it may be halal, but in terms of halal certificate, you may not receive. So the same condition also when you go to the dirty place. So it may be halal, but you may not receive the halal certificate because you have a lot of requirement to receive a halal certificate. Okay, so the halal certificate have the benefit in terms of business. So when you receive a halal certificate, you have the power, the ability to attract a consumer. So this is where the halal certificate offer to the company because the name, the branding itself.
You give confidence for consumers to tell you it's truly halal, so you can come to it safely.
Correct.
I see. All right. So on still the topic on halal certification, are there any other countries that are already issuing a halal certification for cultured meat specifically?
Okay. So when we discuss about halal certificate, so it's combined between halal and the tayyiban. Okay. So the halal is the divine law. So which is what we have discussed before about the taswir, takif, hukum, tanzil, and all of that. Okay, so when it comes to tayyib, regularly it's more related to the scientific method. So whether it is safe or not. But so this is where the regulatories need us scientists to prove that cultured meat is safe. So when they can prove that culture meat is safe and there is a requirement for the safety production, and the guideline is clear, and then you may receive the halal certificate. Even for the food safety perspective, I think USA have conclude that, or UN, if I'm not mistaken, is either UN or USA conclude that culture meat is safe. So when they conclude that culture meat is safe, so in terms of tayyiban, so they might receive the tayyiban requirement, they can fulfill the tayyiban requirement. And then back to the halal, so this is where we need to consider. From the Indonesia perspective, Nahdlatul Ulama, so they have concluded that they use the term culture meat is haram when it is produced from the non-halal facilities, which is the stem cell extracted from the living animal, and the condition, the serum, the enzyme used is from the non-halal element also. So the serum is blood, the enzyme extracted from the non-halal element, for example. So this is the condition that make the culture meat haram. But it sounds more to haram perspective. But when we see from the halal perspective, so when you can produce culture meat from the stem cell that extracted from the slaughtered animal, and you don't use the animal serum, because we have a lot of alternative now. So the serum from the plant-based, and then the scaffold also plant-based. So I think the requirement is not that hard, because the company, when you want to sell the halal, they will find the way to make it halal. So and now Muiz and Jakim is still, I think, I don't know, maybe they are final stage to produce or to release their official statement. As far as I'm concerned, Indonesia, and then if I'm not mistaken, the Muslim Association at the United States also conclude that the animal also need to be, the stem cell also need to be extracted from the slaughtered animal. So we are waiting the Jakim and the Muiz to release their official statement.
Okay, so just now you said Indonesia will say it's not halal if the conditions aren't met. So if the conditions are met, they will consider as halal.
Yeah.
Okay, and also talking about the facilities just now, I think within Malaysia, Jakim requires the whole what do you say? The whole process of from before even slaughter is the facilities, the cleanliness, and also the conditions in which the animals are slaughtered needs to be proper and clean as well, right? So I don't think there's a problem. Would there be a problem if the facilities are not clean in determining the cultured meat is halal or not?
Okay, from the scientific perspective, the scientists that researching, or that even the company that produce cultured meat, the startup that produce cultured meat, the condition need to be very clean.
Okay.
Otherwise, there will be a lot of contamination during the process.
All right. Okay. And obviously, it goes without saying that we cannot produce halal cultured meat together with meats from non-halal sources, right?
Yeah.
That one is we need to separate lah.
The facility need to be separated.
Even though it's the same company but different labs, let's say.
Oh, so this one we need to confirm with the Jakim.
So we are waiting for the official statement on that as well.
Because after after Jakim released the halal status of the cultured meat, so then after that the MOH or the other agencies will come out with the requirement. How to produce, what is the requirement for the halal. I think last week or this week, the company back then in March, the company Cell Agri, they set a conference to introduce cultured meat to the Malaysia consumer, because in Malaysia we are quite new to the cultured meat discussion and so on. Different from the Singapore. Singaporean, they have their literacy about the cultured meat is I don't say that all of them, but because it comes from the top to down, from the government itself. They want to cultured meat need to be there by 2013, if I'm not mistaken. So it's different from us because we have a lot of farmers, livestock farming and so on. Okay, so Cell agree they want to introduce cultured meat discourse to the Malaysian consumer. So I think the CEO have visited MOH to discuss about to set a plant in Kulim, if I'm not mistaken. So they may be the first company that have the plan in Malaysia. But how the process? Do we need to wait the statement from them?
Okay. All right. So maybe one more question. Our podcast today is coming to a close. So before we end the episode, what would you like to say about the current state of halal cultured meat in Malaysia, and what are your personal hopes for this industry?
Okay, so for my opinion, so for the cultured meat in Malaysia, when the consumer when the cultured meat product enter Malaysia, so there is several things need to be discussed. One of them in terms of terminology. So what is the bahasa Melayu, the translation for the cultured meat or cultivated meat? So is it daging makmal or is it daging kultur? Whether the kultur itself represent culture. When we talk about cultured meat, so whether the kultur in bahasa Melayu represent culture in English too. Or the term now used for cultured meat is cultivated meat. So it is like we call it as official statement from the GFI, one of the biggest organization in alternative protein. They use cultivated meat. So cultivated meat, when we translate it to bahasa, it will be biak. So whether we use the term daging terbiak or daging biak, daging biakan, or daging makmal or daging kultur, because the name itself is for the branding. True. So when you use daging kultur or daging makmal, so the consumer may afraid to try it because you have the term that make the consumer fear to the makmal, for example. True. Or kultur. What is kultur? Because when I've discussed with some expertise in bahasa Melayu, they say that that daging kultur is not represent daging cultured meat. So, but when I asked him what is the correct term, so he said that it need to be researched. So the same condition also goes to stem cell. So why from the stem cell you translate to bahasa, you get sel tunjang? Why don't you don't use cell stem? Instead of stem, you use tunjang. So this is where you have to have the philosophy of bahasa Melayu and to translate it from the English, because literal translation it may not be correct 100%. Okay, so from my perspective, the term the translation for cultured meat or cultivated meat in bahasa Melayu. Second one is the law itself. So in Singapore, they introduced a new law known as novel food. So plant-based meat, cell-based meat, fermentation, or insect-based meat. So they put all of them regulated under novel food. But in Malaysia, I don't think maybe they need to introduce a new law. Maybe some of them can fit to the current law that exists now, because when we see in the market, we can see the plant-based product. So plant-based product is there, and the JAKIM, or I think DVS, or they use the current law that fit the plant-based meat. So cultured meat, is it the meat itself, or is it the processed meat? So when you use the meat, when you put cultured meat under meat, so there is a specific law. Or cultured meat as a processed meat, because the company may produce cultured meat that 100% cell-based, or the company may produce cultured meat that mix between plant-based and the cell-based. So when you combine plant-based and cell-based, so the product is processed mode, like sausage. So it between the chicken, for example, and the soy base. Okay. The third one is the acceptance and the literacy for the Malaysian consumer. Because the discussion, the acceptance, the research about the acceptance among Malaysian as a whole is very limited. If we read the literature, the research about the acceptance among Muslim, even in Britain, they have research about it. But for the Southeast Asia, in Singapore, they have several research about the cultural acceptance. But in Malaysia, in Indonesia, there is established research about the cultural acceptance among Malaysians. So this is the opportunity for the researcher to explore about what is, because why it is important. So when we have a research about the acceptance, we have a knowledge about what is the selling point for the product. Is it a name? Is it education? Or is it a label? Is it a company branding? Is it the eclan, for example? So all of this very important to the company, because if the education is the most important that can bring consumer to buy a product, so you need to educate first before you introduce. Or is it the name? So you need to find the name first.
You need to find a name that people would like, and won't be afraid, like daging makmal.
I don't know if they introduce daging makmal, whether the consumer from the kampung, from the village can understand about it. Because when you have a product, you need to have you need to be accepted across.
Branding should be good lah. Okay. So I think that's all for we have for today. All right. So thank you, doctor.
Okay, thank you for the invitation.
Okay.
So I hope that we can get some knowledge about the halal and the culture meat.
Yeah. All right. So members of the audience, we have come to the end of the podcast episode. I would like to thank Dr. Naqib once again for enlightening us about halal cultured meats. All right. Visit the e-estidotmy website at www.st.my and follow us for the latest in STEM topics on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. E-estidotmy is the portal where you can read more informative yet easy to understand content. It is a portal aimed at creating innovative and inquisitive minds among students by learning and appreciating science and maths and all things STEM. I am Nazmi, signing off for ASM Podcast and e-estidotmy. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and have a great day.